I like, decided that I want to go to MIT. I figured out what I needed to do to get it. I decided that I was willing to pay the price. The price is a lot of hard work. I'm not gonna lie, you do have to work. It's not like basically you should work like 30% more than the average person, the average high schooler. It is a lot of work, but figure out if you're willing to pay the price. Basically, you realize that if you pay the price, you'll get in. If you don't pay the price, you won't get in. Like it's that simple. The choice is yours. Just decide what you want to do. If you are willing to pay the price, just do it, and then you'll succeed. But that's kind of the general formula that has really, like when I hear that formula, that works. But ultimately, I think the vision of what you want to become is the most important thing, as it drives all your other actions. So let me give you a really bad example and a couple of good examples in college. So a really bad example is when I first went to college. So there was like this fraternity rush, where like all these fraternities like try to get you to join. They give you like 6 flyers, they give you steak and lobster dinners, they give you like laser tag and like canoeing and all this stuff, right, to get you to join the fraternity. And essentially, I thought I wanted to be really cool in college, which is a horrible idea. But so like the first 2 years, I was like to go to like parties and like I was like basically the vision in my head was like, wow, I want to be really cool. Like I want to be like a baller, quote unquote, in hip hop terminology, which is stupid because there's no way that I can be like one of those hip hop ballers. Like it just does not make sense. But still though, I had this like vision in my head that like so basically the vision drives all your other actions. Now I like really regret that because like I just wasted like the first 1.5 years of my MIT career doing retarded stuff and like not getting anything out of it. Besides the realization that I was pretty stupid. I think at some point so the turning point is actually, so I heard this, I read this quote, which is this book called like The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Basically the book says, the first line of the book says, what you should do is imagine you're at your funeral, and imagine what your friends are going to say about you, imagine what your coworkers are going to say about you, imagine what your community leaders are going to say about you. And that was one of the best advice I've ever gotten, because I was like, okay, well, what do I want to be? So at that point, I had no idea of what I really wanted to be. Because one of the problems is, like, the first 18 years of my life, my goal was to get into MIT. But once I'm in, I'm like, okay, now what now? So for the first 1.5 years, I was like, oh, I want to be a baller. But that did not work. And then, so I had like 3-6 months of like trying to find where I want to go, and then eventually I settled on this idea of like, okay, well, what am I good at? I think I want, and what do I like doing? And I think I really like, so doing a combination of either, so I'm still deciding between like either finance or doing this education startup that I found over the past couple of years. And I think both paths would be equally appealing to me. And then so basically after all that stuff, I just decided what I want and figured out what I had to do. And as an example, I'll tell you about my finance internships. So this September, I got an offer from this hedge fund in Chicago called Citadel, where you like trade energy. So it's basically you figure out like ways to make a lot of money by trading like oil and gas and natural commodities and all that stuff, and gold and silver and all that stuff. So getting these internships are actually really competitive. I think they accept like 1% of applications, so it's like applying to college all over again, but more competitive in some aspects. But there's like an extremely easy path to get there, right? So you cannot get one of these things if you don't get internship beforehand. So I realized that I can do the internships. So then I like try to like call a lot of people, network with a lot of people, eventually got one internship. And that led to another internship, and that led to another internship. And then eventually I got my job. So another example of this thing is that basically to get a job, you also need a high GPA. You need a GPA of at least like 4.5, at 4.8 ideally out of 5. So this is another example of planning effectively, where I took the easier classes up front. So the finance classes are the easier classes. And it's much, much easier to get an A in the finance classes than it is to get an A in like a math or a hardcore CS class. So I kind of artificially inflated my own GPA to like a 4.9, and then got the internships, and then afterwards my GPA plummeted. But that's okay, because like I'm still basically like you figure out what you have to do and just do it. I think if I did not do that, I still would have gotten. I don't know. I still think I would have gotten it, but this is a more foolproof way of ensuring your stuff. I think another advice that I've gotten is this idea of like visualizing in as rich detail as possible your perfect life in 10 years. Essentially, like if you don't have an idea of where you're going, you're just going to wander around and do random stuff and talk on the couch. So like basically visualize like what job you're doing, what your friends are going to be, what house you have, like as rich detail. Because not only does that give you a good goal to work towards, but it also motivates yourself, right? Because the stuff, like anything requires hard work. Like none of the great people none of the history's great people that we admire got into where they are without hard work. So you're going to need something which is going to motivate you to work hard. And I think visualization, where you like visualize what is the perfect life that I want, and then figure out what you have to do to get it, and then do it. I think that is a formula for success, not only for colleges, where you're like, oh, I thought this MIT is going to be this awesome place where if I get in, like everything's going to be great, which motivated me to work hard, and then I got in. But I think just anywhere else. So kind of in conclusion, again, something that really helped me is decide what you want. That's the most important thing. I would not recommend wanting to be a baller, because that doesn't work for me, at least. Figure out how you're going to do it, and then do it. And then again, like specifically to the college thing, I'm not that smart. Our family isn't well connected, and the only reason I'm here speaking to you today, the only reason that like I got to MIT and have these great opportunities is because when my parents had this idea back in China, this vision that I should go to MIT, and this belief that I could do it. So they traveled to 12 cities in 4 countries, and eventually I didn't. So that's the most important thing. And the second thing is kind of from grades 8 to 12, I read that book, figured out what I needed to do to get in, and just did exactly what I needed to do and got in. So the same thing applies to after college as well. And yeah, I think that's the end. Basically, the last point is like, most people don't really know what they want to do. At this point, I still don't know what I really want to do for my career. But for people who are not in college yet, or who are in high school still, getting to college is a great intermediate goal, and like even within college, like the first job is a great intermediate goal for you to shoot towards. So I think basically if you were to summarize this presentation in like one sentence, is like decide what you want, and it's extremely important to have a goal, and then once you have the goal, everything else becomes much simpler. That's a goal that inspires you to work hard, and if that's the goal that you want personally, would really want to see happen. So yeah, that's the end of the presentation. I want to thank everyone for their